Ready for a deep dive, one that really kind of flips the script on us.
I think so. Lay it on me.
Okay, so we're diving into Pedro Elias's reflections, a new perspective on the ego.
Okay.
And let me tell you, he does not hold back.
He's not shy about challenging, like, some really core spiritual ideas. Is that what you mean?
Exactly. Like right out of the gate, Elias throws out this radical idea.
Mm.
The ego
Yeah.
isn't something to conquer,
Mm.
but actually it's like the very foundation
Interesting.
of our spiritual growth.
Wow. Not what you'd expect, right?
Right. Like completely the opposite of what we're used to hearing.
It really makes you stop and think, you know? What Elias is saying is the ego isn't the enemy here. It's more like the bedrock.
Okay.
The bedrock of our journey. It's the thread that connects our souls, you know, through all the different lifetimes and experiences. The cement, I think he even calls it, holding the temple of our being together.
I like that. That's a really clear image. So instead of trying to like erase the ego,
Right.
which is often like the goal in a lot of spiritual traditions, right?
Yeah.
Elias is suggesting that we need to understand its power, its potential.
Absolutely. It changes everything, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Think about it this way. If the ego is the building block, not the enemy,
Right.
then how does that change our approach, our whole approach to personal growth?
Right.
It becomes less about, you know, denial and pushing things away and more about transformation.
Okay. So it's less about like achieving some perfect polished version of ourselves.
Right, exactly.
And more about accepting like all parts of who we are.
Yes, embracing the wholeness.
Even the parts like we've been taught are not okay or that we should hide.
Especially those parts, I think.
Right, exactly. Elias even uses this example of like angels,
Okay.
beings of pure light and consciousness. And according to him, they can't fully engage with the material world the way that we can as humans.
Just like they're limited in a way.
Yeah, they can like observe it, right?
Right.
But they don't have the same capacity to experience it, to learn from it, to evolve through it, through like the messy, sometimes beautiful reality that like our egos ground us in.
We have this unique ability. That's where Elias's view of the fall of man comes into play.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's talk about that because that's a big one,
It's a big one, right? He's suggesting it wasn't a punishment.
which is how it's often framed.
Right, like we did something wrong, but actually it was a necessary step for humanity's evolution.
Okay, so the fall, help me understand this. Help me track this. So we fell as humanity
We descended into duality, basically.
into this physical realm.
Yes, exactly.
And because of that, we gained something. We gained the ability to, what did you say?
To synthesize.
Yeah.
To synthesize the earthly, the material with the
Oh,
divine.
Okay, I get that conceptually.
Yeah.
But how does that idea of us coming to Earth to kind of, as you said, synthesize the earthly and divine,
Right.
how does that play out? Like, how does that connect back to us, like in a practical way?
Well, imagine it like this.
Okay.
We have this very unique, I would say unique opportunity
Okay.
to elevate the very fabric of existence. And we're doing that by integrating these spiritual lessons, these spiritual experiences
Yeah.
into our material lives.
So we're here to learn and to actually like bring those lessons back almost.
Yeah, in a way. It's like we're kind of like,
Right.
we're here on a mission to help the entire planet, I don't know, level up.
Level up. I like
Yeah.
it. Okay.
Something like that.
So we've got this ego, which is not the enemy, but the foundation.
It's a foundation, yeah.
And we're here on this planet to, as you put it, help the planet level up.
I like that. It's good.
But how does Elias differentiate then between like the ego and the persona?
Ah, yes.
Because we use those terms kind of interchangeably sometimes.
Right, and I think that's where a lot of the confusion comes in. Elias is really drawing a clear distinction.
Okay.
He sees the ego as our authentic core self, right? While the persona is the mask that we create
Okay.
to protect that self in a way.
So it's like armor almost.
Yeah, you could think of it that way.
Interesting.
Right. It's like that carefully curated image that we present to the world, driven by, you know,
Yeah.
a fear of judgment, fear of not being accepted,
Totally, yeah.
a fear of rejection.
So the persona is like the Instagram version.
Exactly.
Like all filtered and
Yeah.
curated and
The highlight reel.
the highlight reel.
Oh.
Whereas the ego is like the raw, unedited,
Behind the scenes.
behind the scenes. Yeah, like the director's cut.
I love that.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. suppressing the ego
Okay.
rather than trying to understand it is often what leads to this whole persona creation business. It's like we're so busy trying to fit in, trying to be accepted, that we end up hiding our true selves
Behind a wall.
behind this wall of expectations and insecurities.
It's almost as if, like, we've been conditioned
Yes.
to see authenticity, like our true self,
Right.
as something to be ashamed of.
Yes.
Like something to polish and refine, and trying to squeeze into the same size and shape, you know?
Yes, exactly. And that conditioning, it's like the soil where the persona grows, you know?
Wow. Yeah.
Elias suggests that true growth, real transformation, happens when we start to, I don't know, shed those masks.
Yeah.
And we start to embrace all parts of ourselves, even the messy ones.
Okay, so it's less about, like, this pursuit of some picture-perfect version of ourselves.
Yes, exactly.
And it's more about, like, understanding and accepting who we are, like, fundamentally at our core.
At our core. That's it. That's it. And he encourages us, get the example of children.
Right.
They haven't learned to suppress their ego's natural inclinations yet, you know? They express themselves so openly. They express their needs, their emotions, like, openly, freely.
Without a filter.
Without a filter.
Right.
Kids they're pretty upfront about what they're feeling, I think, no matter how messy or inconvenient it might be for everyone around them at that moment.
Exactly. And while we don't necessarily want to, you know, regress to a state of, like, unfiltered emotional outbursts.
Right.
Just observing that kind of uninhibited expression can be so powerful. It can remind us of innate capacity for that kind of authenticity. It's like a little reminder of what it means to be fully ourselves, you know.
Without the masks,
Without all the pretense and the posturing and just
oh.
being real, you know.
Yeah, I like that. So how do we begin to, as Elias puts it, undress the characters we build out of shame from our ego?
It's a process, isn't it?
Yeah.
It starts with self-compassion, I think.
Okay.
It starts with recognizing that our egos, with all their, you know, quirks and their shadows and their rough edges, they're not obstacles to our spiritual growth.
They're not something to be ashamed of.
Okay.
They're actually, they can be the vehicles that carry us toward that growth. You see what I mean? It's a process of self-discovery. It's peeling back those layers of conditioning, embracing the raw, authentic essence of who we truly are.
I love that. So speaking of embracing, Elias actually uses this, like, really powerful image. He calls the transformed ego a sacred chalice. What does he mean by that?
It's beautiful, isn't it?
It is.
It's like, imagine the ego, which we often think of as this, you know, battleground for all our insecurities and desires. Imagine that becoming a vessel capable of holding something so much greater than itself. The wine of the spirit, as Elias puts it, you know.
So it's not about getting rid of the ego. It's not about conquering it, but it's about refining it.
Refining it, yes. Transforming it.
Transforming it.
And then it can become this conduit, this vessel for something
more.
For something much greater than itself.
I like that. That's a much more I don't know, it's a much more hopeful perspective, I think.
It is, isn't it?
Right.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Because Elias suggests
Yeah.
that the ultimate expression, you know, the ultimate expression of things like humility, compassion, love, you know, those beautiful qualities, those things that we kind of put on a pedestal, they don't just come from some abstract concept of, like, pure consciousness. They actually emerge from this transformed ego, this sacred chalice.
So you're saying that, like, those beautiful qualities, the things that we often associate with, like enlightenment, love, compassion, empathy, all of that.
Yes.
Those things can actually flow through.
They can flow through.
This ego that we've been taught to fear and suppress.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It really challenges us to think differently, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
It challenges us to reconsider the whole path to enlightenment. What if true enlightenment lies not in transcending the ego, but in its complete and utter transformation?
Wow, that's a powerful image to hold on to.
It is, isn't it?
The idea that the very thing we've been taught to overcome, you know, like fight against, push it down, get rid of it.
Yeah, exactly. That might actually be, like, the key to unlocking this, like, whole deeper level of being.
It's like we've got it all backwards, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. So if we're not
Yeah.
If we're not trying to like erase the ego,
Right.
how do we approach this transformation that Elias talks about?
Right, right.
Like, what does that look like practically?
Practically speaking, I think it's about recognizing the ego's role in our lives, right? We all have one, it's there.
Yeah.
But it's not letting it run the show.
Right.
It's about maybe observing our thoughts and our actions with a sense of like almost curiosity, you know?
Okay, so like stepping back a little bit.
Stepping back, not getting swept up in it, you know, instead of like getting totally caught in the current.
A current, exactly. Like just noticing it.
Right.
Without judgment.
Okay.
Just, oh, there it is again.
Interesting.
You know, that's my ego doing its thing.
So it's like we're becoming more aware.
Aware, yes.
Of like the ego's tendencies.
Yes.
Without like having to buy into them completely.
Yes, yes, exactly. It's about creating a little space.
Okay.
A little bit of space between who we are like at our core and these masks that we're wearing, right?
Right.
So that we can choose.
So we have a choice.
We have a choice how we show up in the world from a place of authenticity rather than
fear.
Yes, yes.
That makes me think back to something you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Elias's encouragement to observe children.
Right, right.
Is that kind of like uninhibited expression?
Yeah.
Is that something that we can like cultivate as adults?
Right.
Or is that like some kind of naivete that's just lost?
Right. I don't think it's about trying to, you know, become childlike in every way because, I mean.
Right, because we've grown up.
We've grown up. We have responsibilities. We see the complexities that children maybe haven't quite encountered yet.
Right, exactly.
But I do think there's something to be said for that freedom of expression, that willingness to be present with their emotions without all the layers. You know?
Right, without the self-judgment.
Yes.
They're not like bogged down by all the shoulds and shouldn'ts.
Exactly.
Yeah. That we accumulate, I think, over the years.
The shoulds and shouldn'ts. Oh, my goodness, yes. And while, you know, we can't just erase all that. We can't just go back to, you know, being 5 years old.
Right.
But we can become more aware of it. We can notice it.
Yeah.
And we can choose maybe to approach our experiences with a little more openness, a little more curiosity.
Instead of like clinging to those old patterns.
Yes, exactly.
About like finding that balance between like, you know, the wisdom and the experience that we've gained.
Of course.
As we've like, you know, grown up and matured. Yeah. But also like holding on to a little bit of that like unfiltered joy.
Yes. Yes.
And authenticity that we often associate with being a child.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. But that's the journey, I think, that Elias is inviting us on. A journey of self-discovery and acceptance.
And ultimately
transformation.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
That's a good one.
It is a good one. So Elias's perspective on the ego, it's definitely like, I think, challenging.
It is. It challenges like everything we thought we knew, right?
Yeah, it does. It kind of turns it all upside down.
It does, but in a good way. I think it's like a breath of fresh air, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely a different way of looking at things.
It's a different way of looking at things, and it's empowering, don't you think?
It is empowering.
Yeah.
Because it's like, instead of, again, that thing of like, we have to be constantly at war with ourselves.
Always fighting, always striving to be better, to do better.
Yeah, to get rid of this part of ourselves. Yeah. It's more about like, okay, let's understand this.
Let's be curious.
Let's befriend it almost.
Yes. Yes. Befriending the ego.
And see how it can actually like serve us.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Because it's not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere. It's part of who we are.
It's part of the human experience.
Yeah. And maybe even like a sacred part.
There you go.
Right? If we look at it in this new way.
A sacred chalice.
A sacred chalice. This deep dive has given me so much to think about.
Me too. Me too.
It really has. And it's definitely like, I feel like shifted my perspective a little bit.
That's what it's all about, right?
Yeah. On what it means to like live a truly fulfilling life, you know? And I think what you said earlier about it being a process.
It's a journey.
It's a journey. It's not like a destination.
Exactly.
It's something that we're always like engaging with and working with and
and being curious about.
And
compassionate toward.
Yes, exactly. Well, to our listeners, we encourage you, as always,
Yes.
to sit with these ideas.
Absolutely.
Explore them further.
See how they land for you.
Yeah, journal about it.
Yeah.
Meditate on it.
Yeah.
Talk to your friends about it.
Have those conversations.
And see how they resonate with your own experiences.
It's all about, personal exploration.
Yes.
Finding what works for you.
Yeah. And as always, until next time.
Until next.
Keep asking those questions.
Yes.
Keep diving deep.
Keep exploring.
And keep exploring that boundless potential that lies within each of us.